Islam, Shalom, Hola, Aloha, Assalamu Alaikum, Osio, Bonjour. This is your brother, Zach Bey, Indigenous American Moor, coming to you live and in full effect. Thank you for joining me again. Please like, share, subscribe to my channel. Hit the thumbs up. It helps with the algorithm. Leave a comment down below. Interact with my content. I really do appreciate your support. Let's jump into it. I want to continue on my topic of course, reparations and what our people can do as a nation who's potentially in our way to prevent us from uniting and becoming a recognized nationality and a more recognized nationality in America and a nation of our own. Um, I want to speak a little bit on voting. Since there's a lot of talk on like presidential elections, not enough talk on local elections, but does voting really help us as a people? Voting in this system, I would say yes, and I would say no, as far as us learning from the process of voting, um, and how fair elections would potentially be held. But I think we are a little far and wide on what's fair, since there's a lot of paid lobbyists. There's a lot of financial backing behind potential candidates and existing politicians that are in the interest of big business, big pharma, and other international entities, but not in the best interest for the national security for our country or for the nationals in this country. Um, I believe we've fallen short. Not we, but this government has fallen short and missed the mark as far as that regard. What exactly are super delegates and what's the electoral college? A lot of people are not aware exactly what the electoral college is in America, or even what a super delegate. They might not even remember what a super delegate is. We learned some of this in elementary school if you were raised or educated in the American public school system. Elementary school, and some may have even touched on this, pardon me, even in high school before graduation. That was the case for me. We touched on a lot of government. Uh, Pretty much, we learned government and a little bit of civics my 12th grade year of high school before graduation, which I thought was pretty useful because I did pick up some things, retaining definitions and the sort that I didn't hear in my everyday life as pertaining to civics, economics, and our voting system. The Electoral College. All right, I want to speak on that just briefly. I'm going to put a few definitions here also in the video so you can check it out from the history.com. Um, the Electoral College. All right, when it comes to selecting the president of the corporation known as the United States of America Incorporated, when it comes to picking this person, the Electoral College is actually the one who selects the president. Um, Individual voters, individual like citizens, do not control the presidential election. Um, they the presidential election is controlled by super delegates and by the people who are put in charge of the normal population, as far as like governors, mayors. These people are often known as super delegates. Now, a super delegate is an individual who, whether male or female, but voted by a somewhat political party to have the sway or to have control of a certain number, a set of votes. All right. So most people might imagine voting as one person equals one vote, but a super delegate is one person, and that one person's vote can be equivalent to 20,000 votes. 12,000 votes, 30,000 votes, 30,000 individual votes from one individual super delegate. All right, so these are the people who actually sway which way the presidential elections go, whether or not the populace of a state territory, whether or not the populace of a state territory supports said presidential candidate or electorate or not. The super delegate can make that and sway that decision. Often super delegates are like senators, congressmen. These are the people who are actually supposed to represent we the people as like ordinary citizens or nationals of this country. We're represented by our House of Representative, and our state senator. And often the way the Electoral College is set up, as far as constitutionally, is every state gets a certain number of super delegates, and the number of the population in the state does not affect, or somewhat affects, the number of super delegates they get. As far as like a larger state like Texas, California, those state municipalities or jurisdictions, just purely because of the number of people they have, they would outnumber a state as, say, the size of Maine or Rhode Island, something like that, right? They vastly outnumber them in the size of the state and the population within that state. So in order for like a state like maybe like California or Texas not to just completely overshadow a smaller state as Maine or Rhode Island, something like that, just an example, so they don't get foreshadowed, say those smaller states would get like 11 super delegates, while the larger state only gets 5 super delegates or something like that. You get what I'm saying? So therefore, those super delegates are supposed to balance. It's supposed to be like a system of checks and balances, and they're supposed to balance the power of heavily populated states versus states that aren't so heavily populated. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of how it was originally constructed, but it definitely isn't going that way in today's day and age. It's constitutionally set up that way, but there's a lot of shadow dealings. There's a lot of underhanded tactics, backroom deals being made, controlling the way these super delegates are operating and the way the presidential elections are swayed and controlled. So the normal Joe Schmo, John Doe, Jane Doe, everyday person walking down the street doesn't have the power to affect the voting power of a super delegate. Just don't. It's just not the way it's set up. But an individual John Doe, Jane Doe person could potentially affect the outcome of a local election. All right, so that's where allegedly our power comes from in the system of voting. Our local elections, mayors, governors, our state senators, the seats in that, our House of Representatives, the seats in that. See, that's how we get those people there to represent us as a whole. But there is a large population of people, mostly melanated people, who do not have or who have lost the right to vote and participate in local elections, as far as for judges and the sheriff and things of that nature locally. And then the local elections carry into the power that we have in the local elections would carry into the presidential elections, which would or should affect the sway of the super delegates. But of course, we have to have potential candidates in there to actually represent our interests. We can actually fund lobbyists just the way other groups of people are doing. If there is money in politics and money can affect the way somebody votes, or what policies they support, or what policies they oppose, We can get our own lobbyists in there and back them financially, and we can also use block voting. All right, that means we vote as a unit, and when I say we, I mean our nation of people, Moors in America, so-called Black Negroes, colored people, the American Indians here. We as nationals, like the prophet said, we can cast our free national votes, and we can support our own lobbyists and candidates to back and push the issues that are important to us as a people, instead of just hitching a hook onto whatever wagon that trails by with a Republican or Democrat on it, with somebody using a lot of fancy words, legalese, trickery, wordplay, things like that, to lull any suspected person who might like raise an eyebrow, or want to hold a microscope, or want to hold a magnifying glass to the things that are going on behind the scenes, reading the fine print, reading in between the lines, checking out exactly where the funding, who's being funded by who, whether or not it's corporations or big pharma. Besides simply voting, block voting is definitely very, very important if we combined as a unit, and we could pretty much sway the election, whether it's Democrat, Republic, or Independent, or a completely new party that our people create ourselves. I think that would be very, very important. Can our nation as a people can we learn from this voting system?